Let me ask you something. How many leads did you talk to last month?
And out of those, how many turned into deals?
Because most investors who come to me and Jay stuck or aren't stuck, not because they don't have enough leads.
They're stuck because they don't know which leads to actually execute and say yes to.
A lot of times what happens is they're too strict and then they wind up passing on deals that actually could have worked.
Or they're just too loose, meaning they're chasing everything and closing absolutely nothing.
And both of those, they do come from the same problem.
Essentially, it comes from a buy box that was never built for the way creative seller financing actually works.
So what we're going to do in this video, and make sure you stick around, is we're actually going to show you how to build a buy box that's actually bulletproof and will make you money.
Not rigid and not reckless, that's for sure.
What we're going to do is we're going to show you how we filter out the noise and how you can keep deals that most investors are walking past.
And by the end of this video, you're going to look at your pipeline differently. So make sure you stay through the entire video.
So here's the biggest thing about buy boxes, right? Most investors, they built them off of what someone else is doing.
They heard a rule, only buy in areas with X median income or never go above Y purchase price.
Then what happens is they lock in, their brain gets closed-minded, and then they don't ask questions.
And now they're just sitting there watching deals go by, wondering why nothing fits.
And then here is what we've realized about a strict buy box in creative financing.
It was built for a different strategy.
The rigid buy box that typically will work for your BRRRR deals, whatever you want to call it, or traditional lending,
It doesn't work the same way when you're buying on seller financing or subject to or a wraparound.
because when a buy box isn't accounting for creative terms, it isn't protecting you, it's eliminating your best deals.
So once you start looking at it that way, you start to realize how many deals have already slipped through.
So Jay, what does a bulletproof buy box actually look like in creative financing?
It's not a list of rigid rules like you hear. It's a filtering system.
That's the difference that matters.
Rules eliminate deals based on surface details. Filters help you evaluate the deal based on what actually creates a profit.
And in creative financing, the profit isn't always where traditional investors are looking.
Okay, so we're going to break down 4 things your buy box actually needs to account for.
And that is why strict buy boxes are actually killing your deals,
How to think flexibly without taking on more risk,
the deals that most investors overlook, and why they are often the best ones in your pipeline.
and the one filter that matters more than any other when you're buying on creative seller financing terms.
And that last one that Jay just said is the one that most people have never even thought about. So please continue watching. So what we're going to do is we're going to talk about why strict buy boxes don't work in creative finance.
And we're not saying you shouldn't have standards. You absolutely should have them.
This is what we've seen time and time again. Investors with a buy box that were built around the old school method, 20% down, BRRRR'd out, blah, blah, blah.
Which absolutely makes perfect sense for borrowing with a bank.
Right? But we're not using banks.
When you buy on seller financing at 3%, you don't need 20% of equity at purchase to make the numbers work.
Right? You're looking to try and buy a deal on subject to where you're coming in and you're taking over 2.5% interest rate. The cash flow math changes completely when that happens.
The deal that fails a traditional buy box might be one of the best creative deals you've ever seen.
We actually know someone who passed on a deal earlier this year because it didn't hit their equity threshold.
It looked really thin on paper for them.
And then what happened was that seller reached out to one of our ads and we wind up buying it on seller financing terms, put a rent-to-own tenant in it, and now it cash flows us over $500 a month.
And they said no to it, not because the deal was bad.
Because we were looking at it from a creative financing standpoint. Numbers through a traditional investor filter, and that's a mistake that costs you every deals every single week. It's because we were running creative seller financing numbers through traditional filter, and that's a mistake that costs you deals every single week.
Your buy box has to be built for the strategy you're actually using, not the one you learned first.
So, Jay, if strict buy boxes are the problem,
Does that mean you just say yes to everything that comes around your desk?
please don't do that.
And this is where most investors swing too far the other way.
They're extremists, right? They'll either be super rigid or they don't give a crap and they just leave it wide open.
Flexible thinking doesn't mean throwing your standards out the window, like I mentioned before. It means knowing that what to be flexible on and what to hold firm on.
And there is a way to do this. We do it every day.
Yeah, flexible deal thinking comes down to one question. Mike, what's that question that we always ask?
We always ask ourselves, right, internally, is what are our non-negotiables and what are our negotiables?
So within creative seller finance, your non-negotiables are not what most investors think they are.
I always say this. It's not price. It's not equity. And sometimes it's not even condition.
Your non-negotiables are, listen up, does the deal cash flow on the terms I can negotiate? Is there a clear exit available to me? And is the seller actually motivated to work with me?
And then everything else?
Negotiable.
The price is always negotiable because of Roman's framework with all of the levers that we have.
The condition is negotiable because our buyer pool for rent to own or seller financing exits is very different from a retail buyer.
And then you have your location parameters, which are mostly flexible than you think, simply because the rent-to-own tenant buyer is much different than your traditional retail buyer.
Most investors have their non-negotiables and their negotiables backwards, and it's costing them half their deal flow.
So here's one way that you can stress test your buy box.
Take one of your recent deals you've passed on. Run it through the creative seller financing terms. Seller finance at 4%, 30-year amortization with 10% down.
Now, does that deal cash flow as a long-term rental? Do you have a strong exit strategy? And was that seller motivated to actually get the deal done?
If you said yes to all three,
I can promise you didn't pass on a bad deal. You passed on a deal that your buy box wasn't built to see.
now here's where it gets really interesting.
Because when you start thinking about deals differently, what's going to happen is you're then going to start to see opportunities in places that you normally wouldn't have in the past.
And some of the most overlooked deals in creative seller financing are sitting in categories most investors aren't even looking at.
So what we're going to do is we're going to show you exactly what those are. Let's talk about the deals most investors are walking past every single day.
And these aren't obscure, they're not complicated, they're just outside the buy box most investors built without thinking about the creative seller financing side.
So the first one is free and clear properties with reluctant sellers.
Most investors, I bet you have, heard free and clear and immediately think they don't need me, I can't help them.
But a free and clear seller who doesn't want to deal with a realtor, who doesn't want to pay taxes, and Jay, they want income all over time, what is that?
That's a straight seller finance deal sitting right in front of you and you haven't even seen it.
What happens is the seller becomes the bank for you. Then they get monthly income without the responsibility of the property. And then you get a property with no underlying mortgage and no due on sale clause.
Free and clear doesn't mean they don't need you. It means the deal structure just looks different than you're used to.
Then there's number two, and those are properties that need work in most markets investors would avoid.
Traditional investors pass on these because they can't refinance out of the renovation.
Because if you're buying subject to or on seller financing and your exit is rent to own with a tenant buyer who's responsible for maintenance,
the condition of the property becomes a completely different conversation.
And number three, and this is the big one right now, sellers who are over leveraged, have great interest rates, and also have time.
They're not in foreclosure yet, they're not desperate, but they're carrying more debt than they want, and they love an exit that doesn't destroy their credit.
And that is one that we structure on a mirror wrap. You step in, they step out of the deal. It's a clean exit for them, and now you get a great deal with a low interest rate.
The deals most investors overlook aren't hidden. They're just wearing a different outfit than the deals you were trained to look for.
Now, you know what to be flexible on. Do you know which deals you've been walking past?
But here's the part that actually holds it all together.
Because a flexible buy box without the right filter isn't bulletproof, it's just loose.
And here's one filter that we put on every single deal before we move forward.
And this is one that most investors have never even thought to ask or people know to ask.
You ready for this? Before we commit to any deal, we ask one question. Mike, what is that?
Can you execute your exit strategy on this property with a tenant or buyer that actually exists in that market, not theoretical?
Not based on what Zillow says the median income is.
It needs to be based on who is actually looking in that zip code right now.
Here's what we've seen. You can structure the most beautiful deal in the creative seller financing world.
Perfect term, 0% interest, amazing price, cash flows like a monster on paper.
And if the exit doesn't exist in that specific market,
You're crap out of luck.
your buy box isn't just about the property or the seller. It's about whether your exit has a real buyer or tenant on the other side of it.
And this filter right here is going to save you tens, even hundreds of thousands of dollars.
So before you say yes, ask, who is my tenant buyer in this market? Is there demand for rent to own here? And are there buyers who need seller financing?
And if you can answer those questions specifically and thoroughly, then you do have yourself a deal.
If you can't,
I want you to go back to the seller and renegotiate the terms until it works. Unless the location can't be changed, then you walk away completely.
walking away from the deal that doesn't have a real exit isn't losing. It's the discipline that keeps you from getting stuck in something you can't get out of. We've seen this so much.
So look, if you've been looking at deals and nothing seems to fit,
And if your pipeline just feels full, but you can't pull the trigger on anything,
and if you keep passing on deals and then find out later someone else made money on them,
hi, that's not a lead problem. That's a buy box problem.
and this is what we help all of our students with inside of Roman's Creative Academy.
We look at your specific market, your specific deal flow, and we help you build a filter system that actually finds the opportunity everyone else is walking by.
And this is exactly why we only work with a small handful of people at a single time, because it's so intimate and we need to make sure it works for you.
So if you're ready to stop spinning your wheels and start seeing deals clearly, apply in the link below and we'll start building your buy box together.
And in the next video, I'm so excited for this.
We're going to be breaking down what one of our students, Amy, accomplished.
Amy came to us with about 6 cash flowing properties in her portfolio, but she did feel like she hit a ceiling.
12 months later, she hit 30 properties with us.
Yeah, you heard that right. Not 10, not 7. She has 30 cash flowing properties, and she did this within 12 months.
Using the exact creative seller financing strategies we taught Amy inside Roman's Creative Academy.
And we're going to walk you through exactly how she did it, what she changed in her business, what we helped her look for in the deals, and what it really took to get there.
So if you've been wondering whether this actually works in the real world or in your market,
That video is your answer.
don't miss it.